This is the Alden Report.
All right, well, here we are in Blue Bay Studios. I'm rocking my 99-cent glasses. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm looking, but they're a little banged up. I have it's almost somewhat out of focus for me right now, but it's just kind of my thing. So I should probably get a new pair of my 99-cent glasses. But I'm super excited for my next guest. My next guest is one of four in the past 7 years that have come back again, that I've asked to come back again here on the podcast. He is a young entrepreneur. He's a social media influencer. He's a best-selling author. He's an investor. He's a co-founder of a company that I'm super interested in as well. And I first discovered this guy when I was starting to try to become active on social media, and I saw what he was doing. And at the time, he was only 16. And the things he was doing were just remarkable. And the things that he continues to do, man, I tell you, I wish I know what he knows now. I wish I knew then what he knows now when I was a kid. Although, the internet wasn't even around. I guess I'm old. But anyway, please help me welcome Mr. Casey Adams. Casey, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm looking forward to being on this. I know we were just quickly chatting, but you were the first person that ever interviewed me just when it comes to my entrepreneurial journey. So I'm super excited to be back on for a second time. Super grateful that you reached out, and I'm pumped for this, man.
Yeah, man, it was when you told me that before we went live, I didn't realize that, but I saw what you were doing. I read your book, Rise of the Young, and your story is again one of those stories where you had that real negative thing where you essentially broke your neck and were almost paralyzed, and you turned that around. But that was years. Now it seems like ancient history. But man, you're doing some amazing things out there in social media. Tell us a little bit about. I want to get into your current venture right now, which seems really interesting. But so at that very young age, 15 years old, I think it was. That negative thing happens. Talk about that mindset, but then I want to kind of jump to how did you then all of a sudden become a pretty influential social media guy?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, well, first off, thank you again for having me on this show, and a little context. So when I was 15 years old, as you said, I was 15 years old. I was growing up in a small town in Virginia. I was an athlete my entire life, where I played hockey for 10 years and I started playing lacrosse. And then during freshman, sophomore year of high school, I started playing football. And when I was a sophomore, particularly, I remember it was the first day of hitting practice. We're putting all of our football gear on. We're going down to the field. And then I end up getting injured that day. And, it wasn't one of those injuries where I was rushed to the hospital, but it not only was it painful, but it left me really in a state of I could not move my head. So I woke up the next day, and I tell this story because it was the pivoting point that has allowed me to get to where I am today, where I go to the doctor, I get an x-ray, and the doctor comes in, he says, I have some good news and I have some bad news for you. The good news is you're not paralyzed and you can continue on with your life. But the bad news is you have to be in a neck brace for almost 6 months and you can never play football again in your life. And me being this 15-year-old kid at the time, it was detrimental to my identity, my quote unquote career of what I wanted to do in football and go to college and all this different types of stuff. But looking back, it was the most monumental time of my life when it comes to those 6 months of getting involved in entrepreneurship and business and social media marketing and advertising and all these things that took my time. And it was unique how I got involved, and we can get into it, but that journey of going from this super excited about life kid that was pumped to play football as a sophomore to depressed and lonely and angry at the world, and I'm in a neck brace, I can't move my head, I'm in extreme pain, like that transition, it happened so quickly. But never would I have imagined that it would lead to this entire new career path of business, entrepreneurship, starting different companies, hosting a podcast for 4 years, all these different things that I'm doing now. But, I think that's the beauty in it. And I'm happy to expand on it because I think it's super cool knowing that when you initially interviewed me at 16, like that was when I was just taking my first stab and first step at business, at entrepreneurship. And the past 4 years, I've learned a lot since that time. And I think it's something where I can't say that to a lot of people that have interviewed me when it comes to the beginning and now the current. So I'm super excited to dive into it.
Yeah, I think we were joking. I'm pretty sure we scheduled the podcast in between dinner and lacrosse practice.
Oh my gosh. Like those
I
days.
remember when you told me that. I don't think I realized that you were 16 at the time. And then when you had mentioned that, like, I don't know if we were texting or not, but and I'm like, wait a minute, this kid's in high school, and then I was like blown away even more by what you're doing, because I think about, so my daughter's 15, she's an athlete, she's pretty active, focused on grades, focused on school. She's growing up now, where social media is even more important. But I think about starting a business at that young age. Like, what gave you the idea to get into, like, to go see? There's a lot of like kids that are using social media as their kind of their identity, or their social currency that people like to use, but not currency in a way to make money, but currency in a way to, like, hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
But you are kind of doing both. But in the beginning, you went right to, like, let's turn this into a business.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it wasn't an overnight thing where I said, hey, let me go start trying to make money on social media or build a business. It was a very natural and organic transition where, I'm in this neck brace for 6 months and I'm sitting in my bed, I'm bored. Prior to that, I wasn't someone that was reading often or like obsessed with personal growth or entrepreneurship at all. Like, I come from a very modest family. My mom she's been a special ed teacher for, decades. My dad works at a company called Philip Morris, the tobacco company. So it's like, I didn't at all grow up in an entrepreneurial business minded household at all, where now that I was sitting in my room with time where I'm not playing sports, I stumbled across digital marketing and internet marketing, mainly through just digital mentors of mine at the time. Anyone from Tony Robbins to Gary Vaynerchuk to Tai Lopez being one of the early ones when it comes to like my perspective shift. I remember Tai, I saw one of his ads just when I was watching a YouTube video, and he was talking about health, wealth, love, and happiness. And at the time I was depressed, I was angry, as I said before, and it really pulled me in, right? I'm like, who is this guy? What is he talking about? Start watching his ads, and then he starts talking about, personal development and reading all these different books about entrepreneurs and business and making money. And the way he said it, and Tai and how his whole market, at the time, that when I like to say, like, peak Tai Lopez in terms of social media days, he was all over the place, where I kept seeing his stuff, and I ended up buying one of his programs, which was called the 67 Steps program, which took you through a 67-day program of learning about core philosophies and principles from the greatest minds of our time. And the way he broke it down and explained it was just very consumable when it comes to the content. And by the end of that, I was in a completely different place mentally when it comes to how I think about my future, how I think about money, how I think about making money. And that's when I started really learning from Tai, as well as a couple of different people online, Facebook advertising and social media management, where I started knocking on doors for like local businesses in my area saying, hey, I'll run your Facebook ads, I'll manage your Instagram. Anyone from my chiropractor to my sports therapist to my dentist. And I had no experience in sales, but I was able to start closing these deals and on monthly retainers and managing their social media because they had no one else doing it and they just sucked at it, to say the least. And it just got me not only hooked on business, but sales, marketing, advertising, building something. And I got obsessed with it. And that's really what, from that initial moment of getting injured in a neck brace, that was maybe like a 8-month to 12-month journey from going from picking up my first book to closing my first client and starting to actually make money as a 16-year-old that's looking to start their first business. So that's really how I got into it, was just following mentors, listening to people, and sitting in my room, having no outside communication to friends, but zoned in on myself, on my future, and now this ambitious mindset, which led me down this whole entrepreneurial journey, to say the least. But that was like the natural, organic shift. Like, I had no intentions about getting involved in social media at all, right? I was someone that was playing football and wanted to go to college, and I wanted to go to UVA. Like, that was my path. And then somehow I just, by chance of getting injured, stumbled into this entire new world.
It's really crazy, right? When stuff like that happens, and you talk about, how to turn that negative moment into a positive moment in your book, Rise of the Young, and, which is also the title of your podcast, which we'll talk about a little bit. But when you're going through that tough moment, right, at 15 years old too, right? It had to have been, you mentioned it was lonely a little bit, but you saw this video with Tai. Was there anything else that you did? And the reason why I'd like to maybe for you to, I mean, we're going to talk a lot about your business media kits and what you're doing there, but you know, a lot of people right now are hurting, especially the younger generation. When I think about my daughter who's 15 and, you know, going into high school, her freshman year, you know, they're wearing masks when they were even in there and they were not able to interact. I mean, the whole thing was really, really difficult. There were a lot worse situations for a lot more people, but the mental side of things now is starting to become kind of in. People are recognizing, okay, there is a challenge and we should address it. But did you do anything else other than, you know, the Tai Lopez stuff? Did you talk to somebody? Did your parents try to get you to talk to somebody? Like, how did you kind of overcome that? Or was it just Tai?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a combination of absolutely having great parenting, right? Like having positive reinforcements from my mom, my dad. Like I grew up in a very loving, supporting household, and I'll always say that. And but I think for me, it wasn't something that, and you know, the way I say it, it was not overnight. Like the first 3 months were just terrible, right? When it comes to my mental outlook on life, on the situation, going to school wearing this neck brace, like it was just not a good time. And I think it was the time, but I always grew up like a very confident person, like through sports and having two older brothers where, you know, it wasn't like the neck brace affected me emotionally. It was more so just I was fed up with the situation where I couldn't be active. I couldn't do what I used to do. I sort of had this new identity shift where I think to your question, it was definitely just time, great parenting, but really like these books I was reading, you know, whether that's Think and Grow Rich or Rich Dad Poor Dad, just like becoming obsessed with entrepreneurship and like the mindset aspect of things, it really just pushed me through in a whole different way where you know, I like to consider one of my superpowers is gratitude, where I really began to adopt this mentality of just let me be grateful for this situation. I'm learning something. I'm becoming, I feel like I'm becoming a new individual when it comes to my mentality in the world. And I'm starting to look at things differently and ask myself questions about why my parents do things, why my brothers do things. Like, what is my ultimate goal in the next 5-10 years? And like asking myself these questions at 16, I wasn't asking myself before, and I found it fascinating that that was the case. So I think for me, it was just as soon as I felt that shift, there's nothing else that mattered to me. It was just I became obsessed with the process of learning and growing, and then you know, as more layers of information stacked with social media, with podcasting, with everything that I'm now doing, almost 6 years, like 5 years later. The transition was just super organic, like I said before, but the people around me were super supportive during that time for sure.
Yeah, that's good to have that support system. Again, folks, we're on with Casey Adams. I met him, I think 5 years ago. It sounds like, and
Yeah.
I didn't realize this, but we think I might have been the first one to ever have him on a podcast, which is pretty awesome. I feel when you're a billionaire, I'm going to be able to tell people that when we're on each other's jets. We're on with Casey Adams. If you'd like some more information about Casey, we'll talk a little bit about his company, a lot about his company, Media Kits. But you know, if you want to learn from somebody who's really kind of not only done things but continues to do things within the social media world and also just within the world of business at a very, very young age, in a way that I think a lot of people think is a somewhat unorthodox path. Check him out. His Instagram is at Casey. I tried to get at Mike, but it didn't really work out. Also, right from there, you can check out what his company Media Kits is doing at Media Kits, and also go to MediaKits.com. He did write a book called Rise of the Young, which is also available on Instagram. Today's episode is brought to you by FrontRowBenefits.com, connecting consumers and businesses with front row access to the greatest health insurance that the United States has to offer. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. Folks, listen, if you're like me, if you own a business, if you have a family, or if you're an individual and you're looking for front row access to healthcare, maybe you're tired of your premiums going up. Maybe you don't want to pay those high deductibles anymore. Maybe you're tired of paying more and more for your monthly prescriptions, and you want to make sure that you're getting that VIP access, that front row access. Then visit FrontRowBenefits.com and get a free quote. They're connecting consumers and businesses with the top level insurance carriers in the United States
at discounted prices. Visit frontrowbenefits.com. That's frontrowbenefits.com.
So, okay, and I don't know if we talked about this on the first episode, but young age, you're learning some of the things from Tai Lopez, who's just a brilliant guy. We've both been around him and had conversations with him, and he's just a really smart guy, and just a kind of a rock star. Not only social media but just entrepreneur. When I was thinking about you when you're talking about your first client, what was that like? Because I think a lot of people, even myself, who's done a lot of big things in business, you get a little bit nervous. You're doubtful. You're not really sure what to do. You don't know what the pitch is. You're like, I know Ty's program teaches people how to manage other people's social media. Tell me a little bit about like those first couple, meetings or door knockings. Yeah. Because what I liked about what you said is that like it doesn't get any more organic than that. It doesn't get any more raw than that, than literally knocking on someone's door.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like during that time, I was just, and still am, like very obsessed with doing, right? Where if I'm learning about sales and a different, like a sales tactic, or, how to make the best proposal, I just wanted to go do it, right? I didn't want to just sit in my room and sit there and build it. It's like, how can I go talk to someone and be uncomfortable? Like, it's a very cliche quote, but I believe in it, right? It's like, start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I was there uncomfortable in a neck brace, uncomfortable about my future, where I'm like, let me just go do stuff, right? So it's like when I'm going to my chiropractor and we have an hour together, it's talking to him about what I think they could do better and how they can improve their practice and all these different things, like super organic when it comes to that particular client. But I think those initial conversations and like deals were monumental for me because, me and my background, it was right around the time where in a man's life, you're in high school, you have to go get a job soon, start paying my own bills from my phone, right? Like that was my next step, following my brother's footsteps. And my parents like, hey, you need to go make money. You need to go make money, get a summer job, etc. Where I'm like, no, right? I don't want to just go trade my time for money. I want to go like learn how to sell a service and bring value to the market. And that's what I was like, I must do this. So there was also a time, like a timeline that I was thinking about where I'm like, okay, it's the summer. I need to start making money. I'm going into my sophomore year of high school. Like, let's do this. So I think it was a urgency with dedication and just being uncomfortable that allowed me to go start making some money, which then led me to get into affiliate marketing, where I was building up these Snapchat communities and starting book clubs. Because at the time when I started building my personal brand, I didn't have really much to talk about. I didn't have that much experience. And I was like, hey, let me just start regurgitating in my own unique way what books I'm reading, what information I'm getting from them, the tactics, the strategies, and put them into this easily viewable Snapchat format. And at the time, like, I don't know why I was leaning towards Snapchat, but it just spoke to me because it was a very low friction platform, less than Instagram, where it like sticks there for forever and not just like a 24-hour turnaround. So I ended up building up this following on Snapchat of a couple thousand people that were following me for book reviews, and I was getting connected with them and just like being very active on that platform. And then I started adding in different affiliate offers, whether that was an email marketing management platform or like different books and affiliate links. But I think for me, it was just like a slow transition of doing a lot of different things in like a short amount of time of a year that set me up to really look at the bigger picture and say, hey, like, what do I want to specialize in? Where do I want to spend my time? And whether that's building my personal brand, which led to podcasting, which led to a startup and much more in between there. But I think those initial deals just started the wheel of momentum. Like looking back and even having this conversation with you, Michael, where it's, if I get to really think back to that initial time that we spoke when I was 16, like that was the phase in my life, even though it was 5 years ago, like not that long ago, where I just started growing exponentially from the learning, from the people, from the networking, where like I remember towards the tail end of 2017, that's when I started my podcast. And like from that moment, the amount of people and connections that have come from that, from me just taking that same approach of let me do this. I read this book. I heard about podcast. I'm going to take my Apple headphones, just make an episode and make it happen and like start it. It just snowballed into much more. And I think that is the exact approach I took when I got started. And it seems to be a consistent theme even to this day how I approach things and why I do things.
I really like what you said about that, about, starting the podcast with just, the iPhone and the, just essentially the microphone that comes with the headphones. I mean, I did a podcast with a guy who's got 1.6 billion of assets under management, not Cardone, a different guy, in my car, on my laptop, using my iPhone as, this was just recently, by the way, using my iPhone as a hotspot because I didn't want to miss my daughter's tennis match. But the reason why I did that is, one, because it could be done, and the reason why you did that as well is it's about getting started, like you said, and also the content itself, right? I think people get caught up in the production value in some things, and that holds them back, right?
Totally. I mean, I think you hit it spot on. I mean, I think, and I think about it in two ways, where I think when I started my podcast, like, and so to this day, like, production quality is absolutely extremely important, but it's not everything, right? Like, if you focus on being too perfect, you're never going to get ahead. You're always going to be waiting until it's ready. When in reality, there's so many great tools out there to make a good show, to make it simple, to keep it simple, to make it quick. Which, like, for example, whether that's using Zoom to do a podcast and using your computer audio, right, or there's an app that I'm actually an advisor of called Call-In, and it's like a social podcasting app where you can simply click a link, join the room. It's similar to Clubhouse, but podcast specific, and record a podcast just like you're on a phone call, right? And it's like the friction now is so easy, like it's low friction to entry, where I think a lot of people that have these ideas to start a podcast or even to start a business, and I'm not the expert in any sense, but it's just so low friction. You just need to get started. And I think for any young person that was like the 16-year-old me 5 years ago, it's like taking that same mentality and applying it is by far the most monumental thing you can do, because I think a lot of people that I started my journey with that I may not talk to anymore, it was the lack of just doing and thinking and waiting until it's the perfect time to do something, which holds you back and doesn't move you forward. So I think that's definitely a principle that I find consistent in my life. And with that being said, though, to your point, the quality over quantity, I kind of take a 1,000-foot view nowadays, where I am now really focused on quality because I have the resources. I can actually, like, for example, I'm going to Vegas in October, and there's this incredible, cool studio that I'm going to be doing some awesome podcasts at. And it's super exciting because the quality, the ability to go do that is exciting, because it does add to the, let's say, the show or to the interview, having that quality, but the barrier to entry remains the same, where to get started, you don't need that, right? I didn't need that. And I still don't need that. It's just more so the cool factor that adds to it over time.
Yeah, as I was asking that question too, when I look at the quality of the stuff you're doing, I mean, I'm just on your website, CaseyAdams.com, where you interviewed Larry King, and I've been on your website, MediaKits.com, and some of your other things, and I've listened to your podcast and the quality of it as well. It's there was nothing I would change, I don't think, and I have a bunch of people that work for me. So, but like you said, though, I think a lot of people, I have friends that are my age that are like, that want to start a podcast, and they're going to start a podcast, but they need this, they need that, they know all this shit, and they've never started it because they're just ultimately, I think they're just scared. But I think that's really, really sound advice. I know you don't have a ton of time, but so I want to talk about what you're doing with Media Kits. Before we do that, though, I think I also want to touch upon something. So in your very short time on this planet, and from when you're 15 until now, you've been involved in a lot of different ventures, joint ventures, businesses, consulting with. Now, have all of them worked out spectacularly?
Absolutely not. Not at all. I mean, I think for me, how I like to say it, where over the past 5 years, like, I've tried so many different things, and really up until like Media Kits, everything I've done has been bootstrapped. It's been my own money. I'm like starting from the ground up, where with this new venture of having the relationships to go raise a seed round, to go raise venture capital, it's it's a whole different ballpark when it comes to the way I'm approaching business, the way I'm approaching building a product with the right team, the right resources, where looking back, everything that I've done, whether that was a product launch or consulting for different brands that isn't something I'll do forever, but just working with a brand in a certain project, all of that stuff, and mainly the podcast specifically, if I can always reflect on one thing, like the podcast has been the monumental staple for me when it comes to personal growth in the sense of relationships, in the sense of opportunities, and what comes from that, right? Like I can say with full certainty, this seed round that we just closed for Media Kits is the byproduct of 4 years of hundreds of interviews, of flights, of time, of editing, of late nights for the podcast that's led to this not easy ability, but more so like the ability to raise capital in a short amount of time from great people with prior to that having no relationships in the space, coming from a small town. It's like the podcast for me, to your question, is like been the one thing that not only has been very successful, but it's set me up from a relationship standpoint where 300, 400 interviews later, from billionaires to Larry King to Rick Ross to the VC guys, it's just put me in these circles where I can ask quality questions. And I think that's what has allowed me to get ahead and to stay sharp, which is, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask, right? Might have all heard that quote before, but it's true. And I think one of my biggest takeaways with Larry King, exactly, ask more, get more, right? That's it. And with Larry King, he talks about this, like being curious and staying curious about life. And I think my ability to start a podcast, but actually fall in love with it, has given me so much insight into people, into business, because I'm able to ask all these questions that I'm curious about, which has sped up my growth curve when it comes to business, relationships, and much more in between. But yeah, to your point, that there's a lot of things that haven't worked out that I've learned, that I've pivoted. But I think with Media Kits being this new vehicle and company that I'm building that we launched 6 weeks ago from yesterday, it's been so exciting to start building the team, to launch the product, to be in tech where things move so quickly that I look at my past 4 years as truthfully the setup for this moment that I'm currently in. And I truthfully couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you got to that point. I do remember saying this to you, years ago. I am just utterly impressed with you as an individual and who you are and what you've learned up until this point, because you speak with such wisdom and understanding. And the reason why I asked that question is that as an entrepreneur, which you definitely are, most stuff doesn't work, and it's challenging mentally and financially. And you second guess yourself. Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? But you really kind of brought it home to what we're talking about now is that if you hadn't done all that stuff, if you hadn't stayed in the game, you probably would not have launched Media Kits, which seems to me, like you said, even 6 weeks in is going to be quite the venture for you.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I think everything, like you said just now, everything that I've done has set me up for this. And in little context, so I'd love to just dive into Media Kits.
Yeah, let's do it.
Media Kits, it's a software tool, or creator tool, I should say, that allows creators of any kind, musicians, influencers, bloggers, athletes, to easily create a custom media kit online with real-time data and analytics. Where if you think about a media kit, if people aren't familiar, traditionally a press kit or media kit or EPK for musicians, it's a tool to pitch yourself to brands, to different organizations, to pay you for sponsorships, whatever it may be. And about 3 years ago, my co-founder and I, we had a good friend. His name's JR Garage on YouTube. He's a big automotive influencer. And he came to us because we were both in marketing and said, hey, Pennzoil reached out to me. They want to do a brand deal, but they just asked me for my media kit. And at the time, he had maybe 100,000 subscribers. He was starting to, kind of go viral on YouTube. And we're like, okay, what's a media kit? We look it up. Oh, we built someone on Canva or Photoshop. We just put together his bio and his headshot and his social media stats. I send it to him. He gets the brand deal with Pennzoil. And then about 3 months later, he comes to us and says, hey, Ferrari contacted me. They want to fly me down to Daytona Beach, Florida to do this campaign. They just asked me for my media kit. Can you go update it? Because throughout that 3-month period, I had a viral video. I changed my username. I changed my profile picture, and now everything's wrong. So we're like, yeah, sure. So, we update the profile picture. We're changing the 1s to 2s and 4s to 5s, all the numbers, engagement rate, statistics. And we're like, why isn't there a way where creators can build a media kit that never gets outdated and that real-time data is prevalent to that? And that's when we thought to ourselves, why don't we just create this? But I think most importantly, at the time we weren't ready. We didn't have the time. We didn't have the resources. We were both doing our own thing. So we shelved the idea. And then about a year and a half ago, when we were getting in, COVID was happening and the world shutting down, we had more time on our hands where we're like, hey, no one's done this the way we want to do this yet based on what we can see. Let's go do it. And then we started bootstrapping it, putting designing it and coming up with the product, hired a great team. And then towards the beginning of this year, that's when we said, hey, let's go raise money for this and actually build this how we want to, so we can bring on the best people. And then as of a week ago, we just closed our $1 million seed round. We launched 6 weeks ago, had a big launch party in LA with, we had a lot of our investors there. We had speakers, we had musicians, which was Wiz Khalifa perform there. And we just had this incredible activation to celebrate not only the launch, but to start the momentum for the company. And it's worked out really well. Like we've had thousands of users already on board, and we have a lot to learn from that. And there's always things to fix, and there's so much learning that's already been taking place. But when I look at media kits, it's very important to take a step back and say, this isn't a tool just for creators or for influencers. It's a tool for creators of any kind. And when I say influencers, I mean musicians, athletes, bloggers, podcasters like myself and yourself, where everyone is a personal brand, everyone is a business, and you need to represent yourself with the best digital resume or media kits. And that's the tool we're building, and we're super excited about it.
I love it, because when I think about, that very scenario that you said before, not Ferrari or Pennzoil coming to me, but I've had, say, hey, can you send me your bio, or what are your stats, or this, that, the other thing. And I've had people on staff that have done that. And then I'm like, a lot of times if it's on the weekend or whatever, I don't know, I muddled my way through stuff before when I absolutely needed to, but it probably looked like, a 6-year-old did it. So for guys like me, who might want to do something like this. So I go to mediakits.com, and I want, like that bio, and I want it dynamic, and I want to be able to, issue a press release. Tell me about some of the top 5 things that are like, if as an entrepreneur or people listening right now who are looking for a service like that, who don't want to hire, or maybe can't afford to hire like a PR company or their own graphic designer, or they don't want to go to, Fiverr or Canva or Upwork or whatever. They don't even have time for that stuff, but they can maybe spend a couple hours going to mediakits.com. Tell me about like kind of the process that maybe someone who isn't so tech savvy can do when they go to mediakits.com.
Yeah, great question. So really, we try to make it very simple. So it's free to create a media kit, and you can do it within 60 seconds or less. And pretty much how it works is you go to mediakits.com, you sign up, you click what type of individual you are, musician, podcaster, influencer, etc. And then you connect your social platforms directly through the API. And I think this is an important note where we have first-party API data access, where we don't store your password to any of your social medias. You log in through Facebook, you log in through YouTube or Twitter, similar to how you would on different sites online where you log in through Facebook. So you log in, you connect your account, and then you put your profile picture, you type a short bio, and then instantly you have this beautiful media kit created for you, where you can, on the screen in real time, change your name, you can edit your bio, you can change your profile picture, you can select your top videos on YouTube or most recent. You can change the background video or pictures so it looks really cool and dynamic. And then most importantly, which is coming in the coming weeks, is our Pro plan, which is $19 a month, where you can create more than one media kit. You can connect more than 3 social media platforms. You can add different widgets, which includes your pricing for different Instagram stories or posts or recent sponsorships or your press shots and many cool things in between. Like a custom URL, mediakits.com/RazTheYoung or /Casey Adams. So to keep it simple, it's free to create one. You can do it in less than 60 seconds and you instantly have your media kit. So again, we try to keep it very simple, because exactly what you said is what's happening right now. People need a media kit. Sometimes it's on the spot where someone asks for it and you didn't even know you need it. So you go on Canva, you start, just kind of putting things together. You're rushing, you're trying to build it really quickly, and it just doesn't turn out the best. And then if you get asked for another one in a month and a half, you have to go back and edit your numbers and try to find it. And there's no easy way to store your media kit, and no one's built a product like this in the industry. So we're really excited about it. And there's a lot of cool things happening that will be coming soon.
So if someone were to, again, like they create their media kit, and like a lot of times with me, it's usually like a PDF. But so if someone says, hey, send me your media kit, are we essentially just going to send them to mediakits.com/Mike Alden, or what? Like, tell me about the distribution of it.
Yeah. So you're exactly right. You can send them directly to mediakits.com/Mike Alden,
Right.
or once they have that, you can download it as a PDF. So you can take that media kit and share it as a PDF if you download it. But also something that's cool is, traditionally media kits are used to share privately with companies, with brands. And a lot of people don't want their media kit with all their data publicly facing, where if I typed in your name or mediakits.com/Mike Alden, I can see your data. So you can password protect your media kit, where you have to have the password to access the data. And also create a front facing media kit, which you could put in your Instagram bio. That's very front end focused. Your engagement rate is in there. Your the different demographics aren't listed on there. So it's just like a beautiful media kit for the front end. And then you can also create more of a back end private media kit, which again has the privacy protected password. But that is the distribution route right now. It's just either sending a link or sending the link and downloading it as a PDF.
Do you also, I don't know if you're doing it now or do you have planned for it in the future, is a part of Media Kits going to be essentially kind of like a PR agency as well? Or do you plan on helping with that as maybe like another kind of tier of service?
No, not at all, actually. So we're very focused on just the SaaS play, right? Software as a service, where we are a software platform. We're a tool that anyone can utilize. And we're focused on the individual creator first, which is the independent creator that wants to go build one media kit for themselves. And then really the 3-step approach, which I think is really important to note, is once we have the market share of creators, the independent creators, we're very focused on the more B2B side of things, where a record label or a talent agency or a sports agency that manages dozens of talent or hundreds of talent, like CAA or WME, like these big agencies, they could then build custom media kits for hundreds of their talent and then automatically manage them and distribute them on the back end dashboard, which, if it's like managing multiple websites in Wix or Webflow or those type of things, where we're taking a very B2B approach when it comes to distribution. So that's like the 2-step phase. And we have a lot on our product roadmap that I can't get into too much, but it's a fun 2-step that we're focused on.
Well, man, again, I'm just super blessed to have you back on, and I'm just really excited for you and for Media Kits and what's going on at that company. So, folks, again, if you'd like some more information about Casey Adams, you just go to Instagram and just go to @Casey. He's got that little blue check mark, and that's his Instagram, as well as the website is Casey Adams. But you can also go to mediakits.com. They're also on Instagram @MediaKits. I tell you, again, as an entrepreneur myself, who's had lots of employees and then a little amount of employees and medium and everything in between, this is a service that is appealing to me. So if you're listening and you're watching right now, and by the way, like you said before, as of right now, when you're probably listening, it's free. There will be some paid services, but you really have nothing to lose. So just go to mediakits.com, put in your information, and just kind of see what it's all about. Because whether your brand is established, whether you're growing a brand, or maybe you're just kind of just thinking about it, again, I don't think you really have anything to lose. And Casey is really the perfect example of why you need to really kind of also take control of yourself as a brand. And I think Media Kits, can kind of really help with that. Again, thanks so much for being here, Casey. My name is Mike Alden. That's Casey Adams, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Mike.
Today's episode is brought to you by FrontRowBenefits.com, connecting consumers and businesses with front row access to the greatest health insurance that the United States has to offer. Visit FrontRowBenefits.com. Folks, listen, if you're like me, if you own a business, if you have a family, or if you're an individual and you're looking for front row access to healthcare, maybe you're tired of your premiums going up. Maybe you don't want to pay those high deductibles anymore. Maybe you're tired of paying more and more for your monthly prescriptions, and you want to make sure that you're getting that VIP access, that front row access. Then visit FrontRowBenefits.com and get a free quote. They're connecting consumers consumers and businesses with the top level insurance carriers in the United States at discounted prices. Visit frontrowbenefits.com. That's frontrowbenefits.com.